Let me get back to where we're supposed to be. This is always the interesting part. Hello, everybody. This is Abaya. It's Wednesday, December the 9th. It's 4 o'clock on the West Coast. And with us is Sweta Vikram, and I'm just so excited. We got together, and she was walking on the streets of New York, and we were meeting each other for the first time. And I need to thank Indu Aurora for this beautiful, beautiful introduction. I just was enchanted with our conversation, and I know you will be enchanted with what we discussed today. It's going to be beautiful. And I want to thank Sweta for being with us. She's on the East Coast, so this is dinner hours. So please extend our thanks to your family as well. Hopefully they're not starving waiting for you. So we thank you deeply. Today's topic is the same as we've had with Indu last week, and we'll have with Larry Payne next week on aging. And we hear that word and it brings up all sorts of things for us. Some reaction and some response. But what I'd like to do is maybe start our conversation and just ask Sweta, what does aging mean to you? What is that word?
So, firstly, thank you, Abhaya, and a big hello to everyone who's tuned in. It means a lot towards the end of the year. We all have a Zoom burnout, and you made time to share this moment with us. So very, very grateful. In terms of aging, it's very interesting. Like, I'm a poet and an Ayurveda coach, so both sides to me, from an Ayurvedic perspective, the way depending on the time of the year, our age, like there are different doshas. So, for instance, kapha dosha, which are basically the elements of earth and water, you are in kapha dosha up until like we hit puberty. So that's anabolic, right? And from there starts pitta dosha. That's when you're in the peak, ambition, family, whatever have you. And that sort of ends almost towards, when women start to hit menopause. It's not like overnight the changes happen. Today I'm kapha, tomorrow I'm pitta, then I wake up and vata. It's gradual. And then the later part post that is vata. And what's interesting to me is also how, when you're thinking vata season, you're thinking dry. Uh, when you're thinking kapha, you're thinking more stable or anabolic building. So from that perspective, it's interesting how the qualities of the doshas, we see them very distinctly during the chronological age. But during the pandemic, I've been thinking more. I'm not commuting 3 hours any longer, so I have more time to think about things like these when I go for a walk and whether I'm talking to Abaya or, hiking into the woods to get away from the city. It's like just with this, not just this year, but so much more because of this year, I feel like my friends and I constantly talk about this. I wouldn't want my 18-year-old mind, so it's almost like the body might be chronologically getting older or going through these doshas from kapha to pitta to vata, depending on the stage of life we are at. But the mind almost goes through the opposite. And that's when I said, I'm an Ayurveda health counselor, but I'm also a writer and a poet. So there are always two lanes, and I try to get them to cross like nadis. So I've just been thinking, like, the kind of maturity, um, it's almost like your mind is more stable, like anabolic, more kapha as we get older. And it's more almost, I don't want to use the word erratic when I'm referring to age, but the vata qualities, right? Like the irregularity or instability. That's much more when we are younger. Um, so yeah, that contradiction, especially like with the pandemic, I've been noticing more and more. And I've shared a little bit with you about the demographics, the newer demographics that I've been working with. And I just feel like this whole concept of age and maturity, it's become very nuanced. So yes, according to the classical text, this is what it is, and I totally see that. But like when you take a step back and you're like, I mean, wiser at 60, 50, 70, 80. You don't have that wisdom at 10, right? So yeah, that's what I've been thinking a lot about, like how our mind and our body, they do, we can be told like, age is just a number. And I, to a great degree, I do believe in that. But like, the body starts to show, like, I have a hard time staying up at till 1 in the morning. And when I was in college, I couldn't wake up at 7 in the morning. So you see those physiological changes. You see how your body does better with a dinacharya or like a regular routine, whatever that routine means to a person. Um, but how, like literally, like body wise, it's so different. So it's almost like it's going this way, if that makes sense.
Right. It does. It does. And I offer my apologies. I did not mention all the amazing books that you have written, all the amazing um, um, talks, if you want, that you have given throughout the world. I figured anybody that is here listening to us right now saw everything that I posted on Facebook, and I was that anxious to get into our dialogue together. So Sweta is really internationally acclaimed author, and I do hope that you will research some of her books. And before we get on to the next subject, there is a book that will be coming out, and it has a wonderful title, A Piece, Piece, of Peace. So A Piece of Peace. How would you like to describe that book? I'm so excited. This is great.
Thank you so much. So I also have to share with everyone who's, tuning in, like we got the official okay. My publisher was like, yes, go ahead, talk about the book. So I couldn't be more grateful for the timing and how things work out. So it's a collection of personal essays and it addresses a lot of things. So to give you a little background, I write at the intersection of culture, wellness, and women's empowerment because very often our culture defines how much care we take of ourselves. And oftentimes, women could be in like senior leadership position, holding a seat at the table, but the wellness is something that they don't prioritize because a lot of cultures will, I would say majority of cultures will have somehow have that ingrained in women, like self-care is selfish. Don't prioritize, like put yourself at the bottom of the totem pole. So when you go to work, you make the money, you're still contributing. But self-care, how are you contributing? And my point or my counter argument to that is when we heal ourselves, we heal the world around us. It starts with our family, our friends, our communities, our co-workers, our clients, everyone around us. So yeah, so this it's a collection of essays which fulfilled with simple, accessible, modern Ayurveda and mindfulness tips in the form of personal essays. So I've interviewed a lot of, and I'm a big champion for amplifying women's voices. So interviewed women and their experiences. And what tips do they have to say? There is a lot for creative professionals, but then, I've used creative professionals and writers as a case study. Who doesn't need to lead a healthy, mindful life? And also, there's a lot for chronic illness survivors and warriors, because I felt critically ill 2 years ago. And I was like here, hiking, fine, and then fighting for my breath at the ER. So that's how extreme it can be, and like the toll it takes. So when we talk of well being, I was fit, but, was I healthy? And the toll that it can take on your confidence, the trust issues you might have with your body, because I was doing things right, quote unquote. And so all of that. And, I, in fact, have also interviewed some chronic illness warriors and survivors, and they share simple things like what not to say to someone who has chronic illness. Like ask questions, don't make assumptions. Oh, you look great. Everything must be fine. Are you making an excuse? So the entire book is a dialogue, is a conversational, and it's helpful to anyone who wants to lead a mindful and balanced life while acknowledging that we live in a modern world and what we have access to, there are limitations. So how do you manage all of that while leading a personal life and a job and what have you?
Right. Oh, awesome. Yay. And it's, I believe, coming out at least as of right now in October 2021. So we'll let you know when it's when you're able to pre-order it for sure. And that will be really awesome. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abhaya.
Yeah, totally. So on this subject of aging, there are two other things that I really wanted to discuss, and that is um, how the sense of purpose in yoga, we call this dharma, how that helps to ground us in a sense, how that helps us to mature in our lives, and the importance of that concept. And maybe from there, especially during COVID, but maybe from there we can kind of segue into, because it has to do with the same thing, your work with teenagers, because I know you do a lot of work with teenagers. And I think at this time, my heart, quite frankly, goes out to them more than anything. I think that this is a really pivotal time for them to understand, wow, let's take the baton and create something completely different, and I'm not sure that they are able to do that yet. And how can we help with that? So that's all sort of part of that whole aging, maturing.
Right. And I love these questions because, when you think from an Ayurvedic perspective, again, it's, you have your kama, your artha, your dharma, and your moksha. And the first three lead to moksha, right? Or moksha, however we call that. Uh, f- I feel so, like, when the pandemic hit, for majority of us, we didn't know what was happening. Not to say we know that now, but at some point, to come to grips with it, that
Right.
okay, this is our reality today, and either one could focus on everything that wasn't working out, or maybe take a couple of steps back. Hey, I have a little bit, people are busier, granted, you're doing homeschooling, remote working. For those of us who live in apartments, there's always constant juggling of space. But the reality is there is a lot to be grateful for. And so there is that little time, should we choose to carve it, to really focus on what a dharma is. For a lot of us, you go to school, you get a job, you continue to do that. How many people have had the awareness or opportunity or the privilege to really pause and ask, what is my dharma? Someone might want to be an artist and paint murals, but does it pay the bills? So what I like, and I'm not saying I like about the pandemic, but every bad situation teaches us something. And so that's why I choose the word like here, is forced us to pause. Like, don't be rushing. Don't think this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I was born to do. This is what I've studied. So this is what I'll end up doing. Now, how is it that we can take a pause and ask, okay, am I happy with what I do? But yes, there is also the reality. So, going back to your karma, your artha, your dharma. So if you have a family, you can't just overnight decide, I'm going to quit everything and I'll paint murals, eat your fingers for dinner, right? It doesn't work that way.
Something as it is sometimes.
So how is it that, but maybe, and I know enough people who've carved out space and time for the passion during the pandemic. And that is dharma, right? So you are taking care of your responsibilities, whatever that, it might be just a pet, right? And it's not just a pet, it's a lot of work. You could be single, you could be with a partner, you could have a family, whatever it is. Or you could be taking care of the elderly in your family. So that also is your dharma. But also, your dharma is to take good care of yourself, because compassion that doesn't include you is not really true compassion. And we were talking about this earlier, that people do a lot, and I'm one of those. I used to be one of those people who would do a lot, and then one day have get into this burnout, and then emotionally feel like a wreck, like I'm the one constantly doing it. So the point is, you also, so dharma would include your professional life, your personal life, your responsibilities, also your passion. So use this time to take a pause and ask yourself, what is my greater purpose? For some, it might be being a lawyer. That is the greater purpose, and that's fine. Doesn't mean you going to dig through layers and find something different. It might be just the thing, but at least check in with yourself. The universe has given you an opportunity to really check in with yourself. Is this the life you want? Is this your path? Is this your purpose? And how can we integrate that, right? Like, I have a day job, and I have a business, I have a family, I also do writing, and I realize that's my dharma. And integration, all of that keeps me happy. But I learned that not because I was just sitting and meditating one day. It's over the years I've kept asking myself that question, that what is my dharma? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What triggers you? What the nerves in your neck, what tightens that? So all of that would answer the question to what your dharma would be. um, does does that help?
Absolutely. And so when you're working as parents or a teacher or even a friend, a neighbor with teenagers at this time, how can we encourage them to, in a sense, really think out of the box, to really sit down and say, okay, wait a minute. Society is used to asking me to go in a very linear way. I think everything is just way too linear right now, personally. How can I change that? How can I find out what is it that I that as you're saying, what is it that really turns me on, gets me all excited, and I'm focused and I'm there 100%. How can we encourage the teenagers to, and I'm really picking on mentioning this group specifically because I really feel that this is just such a golden opportunity
Right.
for 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 us to turn things around a little bit because they will be they will be maturing, they will be coming up in age, and they are the ones really that are going to be making that difference. um,
Right.
so when you work with your teenagers, how is it that you're able to really help them see that value?
Right. So first of
Pause.
all, I have to compliment you on the circular nature of the question. It like came full circle, and I really like. So the writer in me really appreciates that.
Thank you.
Good, good. I really love the
Okay,
circular nature.
intentional, but thank you.
It was beautiful. So I'll start with this example. Two of my nieces, our nieces, graduated high school this year. And when I spoke, of course, there's the virtual celebration, all of that stuff. But I chose to speak with them separately, individually, when no one else was around. And I was like, how are you feeling? And they were both like, I recognize my privilege. I have this, I have that. And I was like, cut the crap, like literally. And this is where the aging thing comes in. You're 16, 14, 13, 18, and you're expected to navigate the world with the nuances of 40 plus year old. And to me, that's unfair. So then the next step was I spoke to my therapist friends, and I was like, this is my Ayurvedic philosophy of how we handle things based on the Ayurvedic texts and my learnings and teachings. From a Western perspective, like from a psychology perspective, what would be the first thing that you would suggest? And they were like, acknowledge that the today really, for lack of a better word, sucks. It's terrible. And with the group that I'm working with right now, they were able to go back to school over summer, or towards the end of summer, early fall, something like that. And then all of a sudden, it's gone back to the hybrid mode, right? And for some people, and I think New York schools, they also closed the hybrid mode for some time. So it was just remote learning all over again. Again, remember, in this city, especially, or any city, spaces are small. A lot of families live in a one-bedroom apartment, right? So going back to that example of my two nieces, and then they were like, yeah, I was like, you missed your prom, you missed your trip with your friends, you missed your graduation, you will never know what it's like to do something silly on the last day of school and then go to college. You didn't get your rite of passage. It's okay to be upset about that. And then they were like, you know what? Yeah. So I'm like, once you go through that rite of passage of acknowledging what hurts you, that's when true doors to gratitude open. Otherwise, every now and then when you feel low, you'll be like, yeah, what should I be grateful for? Like, that didn't work for me. Go through your grieving period because we are all grieving right now. We are all coping. People have lost loved ones, people have lost jobs. Kids didn't get to enjoy their teenage years or their childhood. That we have nieces who were born this year. Um, they've just not seen anything, right? Like being born in 2020, like to me, they're the blessings of 2020, but at the same time, their child is going to be so different from somebody who's a year older as well. So the first thing I tell the teenagers that I work with is acknowledge, right? Always acknowledge. I mean, most of them, a lot of them rather, would like to go to McDonald's or whatever have you, like share French fries with their friends. And I'm like, you're not able to do that. And I feel so sorry that you're not able to do that. And your families understandably expect you to behave like you are in the other end, like, pitta bordering on vata age, when you are in that kapha age. They're figuring out the hormones right now, and they have to like navigate the world with the maturity of somebody our age. So it starts with that, and then rooting them in gratitude. because it has to, you have to also put a lid, because otherwise it's like such a act of balance, that you acknowledge, you grieve, you accept things don't feel nice, and this is not the most conducive environment. I mean, high school kids, right? They want to hang out with their friends. They might have a sibling running in the background, or like the mom screaming at them, get your, clean up the place. Like, they're not doing what typical teen. What do you do with that pent up energy? All of that. So once they do that, then I do a lot of breathing meditation with them, pranayam, breathing techniques, and how they can ground themselves. And while I always tell them, they need to see a counselor or a mental health practitioner. Obviously, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your teachers, go through that route. But in that moment when anxiety hits, I will never be able to step into like a place that sells shakes. No, there are something as simple as alternate nostril breathing or just deep breathing can ground you. So it's almost like this journey that we go on, starting with the grief, the acknowledgement, the centering practices, then focusing on gratitude. And the biggest thing is just reminding them that the only thing that's permanent in the world is change. So this too shall pass. And to not think 6 months from now, just think 6 days from now. It lowers the anxiety when we don't think beyond. Like, no one knows even 6 minutes from now, right? Just how things are right now. So it just creates too much anxiety when they start to think 6 months from now, what will I do?
Right. I'm looking, I'll find it before we close. Durga Leela, a dear friend who's the founder of the Yoga of Recovery, posted exactly what you're talking about as far as breathe is concerned. I'll find it. It's absolutely beautiful. It was a poem that was written by one of her students. It's so appropriate to what you were just saying. So
Wow.
is that age group, are they open to the idea that possibly this is their golden opportunity to create something in the world that is very different from what their parents, what society is expecting of them? That whole thing of, go to school, go to college, and get a job. Can we honor the fact that they really are unique, that they have unique dharma, and really at even at this young age, maybe really start thinking about what is it that makes me so happy, and how can I nurture that? Is there any sense of that you feel is out there?
So I would say yes and no. Because I feel like this year has been such a yo-yo, especially for the kids. So it's not been like you can't step out of the house. You can't, and then a month later you can, and then you can't, and a month later you can. So it's been, they've also felt like emotional yo-yos in the process. What I do try to do is share simple examples of where I fell off the wagon. Like when COVID hit, I was like, guys, if you're the ones eating brownies, it's not just you. I was face down in pecan pie. So also bridging up the gap
Right.
of where it's not like I have got it. No, not at all. Every day is a daily practice. So it's more about changing their mindset about how they can deal with the situation, because they don't know, honestly, which is kind of scary even for me to think about. They don't know what the future will be. Of course, they have a future. After every pandemic, war, crisis, we've had a future. But at the age of 16 or 17 and 18, to think that far ahead, they're just thinking about, I can't hang out with my friends. Like, my life sucks. So it's just bringing them on that journey where it's like, just think about, so it's not so futuristic as it is about today, because that creates a lot of anxiety for them. Will I be able to go to college? If somebody had a part-time job, for instance, that would have paid for college, what happens to that? So all of that creates so much stress or anxiety for them. So it's just, at this point, just sharing the tools with them. It was very interesting in the beginning. The number of people who leave the camera on keeps increasing with every session. So it's really meeting them at that their level, and
Heard.
not, no, and connecting on a authentic level. Like, I really get it. It's tough. It's tough for all of us, and I would like to say we are on the mature side of age, right? From an Ayurvedic perspective, from any perspective, and for them, they've been forced to age. So it's like catching them in that moment. No, no, it's okay. You don't have to behave like a 50-year-old. It's maybe it feels like today, you will be 18 even 3 months from now. So reminding them the power of now, that I think has been very, very helpful versus reminding them that what else can you do. And I think a lot of kids are taking to some kind of hobby. They've also been very busy. They're really burnt out. The more I talk to them, I realize they're really burnt out from, like, we have friends whose kids are taking music lessons online, or they're doing sports lessons on, like a taekwondo online. Everything has become virtual. So it's also like, how do they take care of themselves? How do they remain attentive? So it's more, a lot of focus is also around self-care. Like, if you take care of yourself now, in the future everything else will be better. Things just change, they don't go away. So opportunities might evolve, but they won't just go away.
Right. That is that's a heavy load for a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a heavy load. It really is. It's amazing. Um, yeah. So believe it or not, we have 5 minutes, and I would like to ask you, what amazing words of wisdom would you like to share in respect to this conversation about aging, about maturing, about I really just like growing up. That's something I was brought up with, oh, grow up. And I just, every time someone says that to me, it's just like, they might as well put a hand on a steel plate on my head and push me down into the ground, right? But this process of aging at any age, at any time, and maybe even touching on the elders if you want, and and I consider myself an elder, what our responsibility is at this time. Because boy, we've been through it too, so.
Stay true to yourself.
Right.
That's true for everyone. Like, there's so much of information and misinformation. So again, because our dharma is to figure out a purpose,
Right.
use that time to find who you are and really stay true to who you are. And in doing that, but don't forget, the only way out of any bad situation is if we come together as a community and society. So, like, something as simple as, and this is not a political place, but like, whatever it is that can help slow down the spread. When this had started, I've had conversations with the elderly and with the younger ones, that the younger lot thought, oh, I'm immune to it, nothing's going to happen to me. And I've had the elderly tell me, I've lived my life, so what if it happens to me? So I'm like, it's not like you catch the virus and you're gone. It's not that easy. you know um, how you want your end, we don't get to decide that for the most part. So take good care of yourself, and it all comes back to your dharma. Also includes self-care. Eat the right kind of foods, do your yoga, do your pranayam, talk to nourishing people. Take when you take good care of yourself, you'll also inspire others to do the same. So if there are like 5 people who was like, I'm going to just go out because I'm at the vata end stage of my life, who cares? Or someone who says I'm in the, and people aren't going to say I'm in the kapha age, vata age, but for the sake of saying, or I'm like, I'm 17, I'm not going to catch anything, but others might. And why would you want to do that? So think about yourself, and at the same time, when you're doing that, you'll automatically start to care about others, because you see it has like that compounding effect. So self-care is critical, it's radical, it's revolutionary. Heal yourself, you'll heal the world around you.
That's beautiful. Yay. Oh, thank you so much. So in essence, it's called no mud, no lotus. So we really take advantage of being in the mud, and is really where we're at. We can have a few mud flights while we're at it, and laugh and cry and slip and have some fun. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so, so much. I will be posting everything, as always, on Facebook, after I have uploaded this or downloaded it, whatever they call it, to YouTube. I'll post that on Facebook along with Sweta's website, and so that you're able to find her. Because if you would like to do some sort of an Ayurvedic consultation with Sweta, I'm sure she would be delighted to be with you via Zoom. So next week we have Larry Payne, and we go completely to another spectrum of aging, and it will be completely physical. What is happening with the body, and how does that affect the rest? And as we age, we know that the one thing that we can pretty much count on is a slight decline in the bodily functions. Even though the mind may be sharper and other things may be much, much better, the actual body does, and it's aging. It's getting up there. So we'll enjoy that. So thank you again so much. I so appreciate
Having
it. Please thank your husband. I hope he hasn't died of starvation waiting for dinner.
this, this was lovely. Conversations like these now more than ever bring people together. So thank you for this initiative and for asking me to be a part of it. I'm really honored.
Awesome. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, everybody. I will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.